Hey guys, Dark Energy with another non-meta build. We'll go ahead and showcase how this build looks and works with some clips here, and then we'll loop back around and discuss the build. Talk to you in a bit. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed those clips. Now we can dig a little bit deeper into the build. We'll go ahead and start with the sets, the gear, and why we're using what we're using. So the first 5-piece set is Defilers. Nirnhone bow with a double dot poison. Weapon damage, weapon crit, weapon crit. When you deal critical damage, you have an 8% chance to summon a hunger. He spews 7,200 poison damage to all enemies in a cone hit and stuns them for 5 seconds. A hard stun, bringing them to their knees. Double dot poisons on that. Maelstrom's Battle Axe, Nirnhone with the Berserker Glyph. We want that crit charge bonus. You could use a Defiler 2-hand. Maw of the Infernal, most know what this set is. Max health is the first trait. That's going to go a long way as a Nord and as a Necromancer. We'll talk about that later. When you deal damage with a heavy and light attack, 10% chance to summon the Maw of the Infernal. He's going to wreak havoc for 15 seconds, flame damage, and some physical damage. So, Defilers, Jack. So the second 5-piece set is Scavenging Demise. Weapon damage, weapon crit, weapon crit. When you deal critical poison damage to an enemy, that's going to be a 100% chance when you deal critical poison damage to summon the Scavenging Maw, 8,300 poison damage, and inflicts minor vulnerability for 15 seconds, increasing all their damage taken by 8%. What's cool is that the cooldown is 10% or 10 seconds, and his the effect of minor vulnerability is 15, so he overlaps for 100% uptime. And if you look there, we got recovery on all of our jewelry. You could make that weapon damage if you want, but we're over 3,200 weapon damage, and we want to stay over 3,000 recovery. I'll show you the stat screen here in just a minute buffed up. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, let's take a look. 3245 weapon damage, 3218 stamina recovery, 31,000 max stamina. Resistances are great. The crit resistance, I have one more piece to transmute. We're a vampire. We want that 10% stamina and Magicka recovery on this build, and you want that extra damage mitigation. When you drop below 50% health, you get up to 33% more. Our boon is the Serpent. We want that extra recovery. And going along with that recovery, we also want to use the Dubious Cameron Throne. You could use a Tri-Meal, but again, I want that extra recovery there. So you see it's a pretty good looking stat screen. We are a Nord. We'll talk about those passives and why we're a Nord. The first one's going to give you extra max health, working well with Maw of the Infernal's first trait and one of the Necromancer's passive for max health. And then gain immunity to Chilled. That's going to prevent you from getting dealt minor maim from frost damage, reducing your damage output by 15%. Stalwart max stam helps us in this build. We're a stam build. And then the ultimate proc is great. 5 ultimate every 10 seconds when you take damage. And rugged, an additional almost 4,000 physical and spell resistance. So those passives are excellent for PvP, a stamina PvP build. All right, so we'll kind of showcase these sets to show you how they look. Scavenging Demise, we'll do that one first. Weapon damage, weapon crit, weapon crit. When you deal critical poison damage to an enemy, you summon the Scavenging Maw, who attacks your enemy after 2 seconds, dealing 8,300 poison damage and inflicting minor vulnerability for 15 seconds every 10 seconds. So, critical poison damage is what's necessary here. So let's find a crit. I did poison injection. There's a crit hit. You're going to see him appear. There he is, in the wrong side. Red smoke. You see on the enemy, that's minor vulnerability. All the damage he's going to take is increased by 8%. I got the double dot procced there. That's why my weapon glowed kind of a red smoky. With poison injection and light attacks, you're going to be able to weave that and get that double dot and that poison injection constantly. Getting crit hits just left and right. So there's some more crit hits. There he is again. See, like even before the minor vulnerability falls off, he's hit with it again. In addition to the poison damage dealt by the Scavenging Maw. And then Poison Skull, that's another way. On the other bar, we'll go over that later, but I've got that on the other bar. There he was, critical poison damage. So that is Scavenging Demise. The next set we'll look at is Defiler. We're using a bow with a double dot poison. It's very important. Nirnhone. It's going to increase our weapon and spell damage. Weapon damage, weapon crit, weapon crit. When you deal critical damage, you have an 8% chance to summon a hunger. Spews poison to all enemies, 7,200 poison damage in a cone outward, and stunning them for 5 seconds. Now, this dummy is going to have immunity, so he's not going to drop to his knees to reveal the hard stun. But whenever you see him come out and hit him with that poison, there's a double dot, see the smoky bow, the 3 ticks of damage, there he is. Comes out, throws up, 5184, Anybody in that direction would have also taken the damage in kind of an AoE and dropped to their knees as a hard stun. Didn't mean to cast a skeleton there, but you'll see he's out quite a bit. It's every 5 seconds, and as long as you keep those double dots on and weaving your light attacks with poison injection or venom skull, even, again, he's any crit hit. He's not restricted to poison like the first one was. Any crit hit. So when you go through your full rotation, all the dots, all the damage, 8% chance, he's out constantly. Just a side note, I turned off the other sets for visual clarity. It's why you didn't see anything else happening besides him. So, okay, next set, Maw of the Infernal. I'm sure everyone knows this set by now. First trait is max health. I told you earlier that goes well with the Necromancer passive for max health and the Nord passive for max health. When you deal damage with a light or heavy attack, 10% chance to bring out the Maw of the Infernal, dealing flame damage. Now, he's out for 15 seconds. 10% chance, it's pretty much, if you roll the dice, it's going to be 1 out of 10. But I'm telling you, he's got better odds than that most of the time, it seems like. There was a true 10% right there. So light attacks with your bow, light attacks with your sword, heavy attacks, that's going to bring him out. You can see he even causes him to burn there for another dot. So just when you're doing your rotation, casting your buffs and summoning your pets and just going through your full rotation, in between do light attacks, and you're gonna constantly bring him out. Again, he's out for 15 seconds. Another body, he can be hit. He gets in the way. He's big. He's ugly. Perfect for this build. You could use, if you wanted to, Shadow Rend, but you get Magicka recovery as the first trait, and then he deals magic damage, and he's a little harder to see, but he can't be killed, so that's a plus. But I like Maw of the Infernal on this one. You may have noticed I had one heavy piece and one medium. You could go both medium or both heavy. It's up to you, depending on the armor passives that you want to have more of. So, all right. Next one's not really a set per se, but it's a two-piece. Maelstrom's Battle Axe Nirnhone, which is not only going to increase the damage of that particular weapon, but passively increase your weapon and spell damage, in addition to the 348 from the Berserker Glyph. Crit charge from the Maelstrom deals an additional 10,000 plus damage over 5 seconds. We want that extra dot. It's a battle axe, so axe grants your melee attacks 16% chance to apply almost 11,000 bleed over 6 seconds. That's almost a 1 in 6 chance. We're using Stampede as that morph, our gap closer, crit strike, and then also a dot that it places on the ground, which I'll show you that here. So that's not as imperative in PvP. People might not stay in that area, but you're going to see 2 dots there. One is the Maelstrom, and one is a Stampede, like secondary dot that's on the ground. You can't really see it, but it's kind of smoking on the ground. There we got the bleed that time, being that it's an axe. Now it looks like a sword. That's just a outfit style, making it look like a sword, but it is a battle axe. So that is the gear and setup. Now we'll go ahead and go into the next phase of the build. We'll talk about the skills that work well with those sets, kind of skill set synergy here, and we'll go ahead and show those a little bit here. First skill, definitely most important, poison injection. 35-75 poison damage, and then an additional 83-65 over 10 seconds. Those can crit. So that's going to put your dot on the enemy. You know, it's not going to deliver your double dot poison. You have to do a light attack or a heavy attack, but I weave sometimes the light attacks and the poison injection to really get that double dot to apply. But even still, that extra dot on there is hefty. It's going to bring out the, look, both the hungers are coming out, and I'm just doing poison injection, so not full rotation, just to show kind of how much impact on this build this skill has. So now if I begin to weave light attacks with poison injection, look, I got the double dot poison to apply. My bow is glowing with 3 dots of damage. Both of the hungers came out, Scavenging Demise and Defiler. That's what I mean. Just with light attacks and that poison injection skill, you're going to constantly keep them out. Even the Maw of the Infernal will come out from that light attack. So next skill, Resolving Vigor. One of our 2 heals, 13,000 health over 4 seconds. It could crit for more, but pretty basic there. Next skill, Blighted Blast Bones. We summon a skeleton. After 2.5 seconds, he lunges toward the enemy, dealing over 11,000 disease damage and applying Major Defile, reducing their healing received and health recovery by 30% for 4 seconds. He's got a pretty good range. He looks pretty cool. I didn't get a crit there. 7,750. I got one here, 12,400. I'll back up a little bit to show kind of the range here. And I like that he's delayed because you can kind of stack up some other things, just like the Warden does with the Shulks. So anyway, that's his whole deal there. The next skill we're going to look at is the Spirit Guardian. I love this one. 16 seconds he's out, heals you for 1641 every 2 seconds, and while he's active, 10% of the damage you take is transferred to him instead, just more damage mitigation. He will heal you or the lowest health ally around you, so nice for the group. But Skeletal Archer, this is your next skill. 16 seconds he's out, 2289 physical damage every 2 seconds, but his damage increases the longer he's out. And he can crit hit. So if you watch here as he goes through, his damage will get more and more. And again, he's worth having out because there's passives for having him out, and I'll go over that later. But also he can be hit. He's a target. He's in the way. 3655. There was a crit hit by him. Next skill, Pestilent Colossus. This is our ultimate. 3 big numbers over 3 seconds. But more important, applies major vulnerability for 8 seconds, increasing everybody hit. Their damage received by 30%. So he looks cool. He's big, he's mean, he's nasty. So anyway, that wraps up the bow bar. Now we'll go ahead and go over some of the skills on the two-handed bar here. So first skill on the two-handed bar is Venom Skull. Every third cast deals 20% more damage. Any Necromancer ability will count to that third cast. 6592 poison damage. That's going to help bring out the Scavenging Demise when you get a crit hit. There he was from the first one I casted. I played around with this skill slot for a while using Necrotic Potency, the Ruineth Scythe. There's different skills you can put in place if you don't want to use the Venom Skull. The Scythe is a good one, but maybe even the Spiders. I thought about using the Undaunted skill, the Spiders, for more summon, more pets, but anyhow. Executioner. This one here, 3662, it doesn't really, this is not going to be a good example because he's got so much health, but when they're down below, 20, 10, 5% health, the numbers are ridiculous, upward to 20 to 30k, so PvP not that much, but still pretty big. Stampede, we talked about this already with the Maelstrom Battle Axe, and why we use it, and how it works, and the dots that apply, and the bleed damage, so just kind of a gap closer, gets you from point A to point B pretty quick. Next skill, Forward Momentum. This one just makes you a better player with one button. Weapon damage by 20% and stamina recovered by 10% for 20 seconds. That goes a long way, in addition to CC immunity for 4 seconds. So this skill is a must. Makes your sword look cool. So keep that up. Next skill, Major Resolve and Major Ward for more resistance. We picked the Summoner's Armor Morph because while it's active, reduces the cost of all your summons by 15%. So that's perfect for us in this build where we're using all 3. It looks pretty cool in the back. You see the spines there. So those 2 skills are going to keep you buffed with your damage, recovery, and resistances. The ultimate here, Ravenous Goliath, I love it. Gaining 30,000 max health and filling that max health bar with 30,000 health for 20 seconds. And while you're in that mode, you'll heal with light and heavy attacks and actually deal damage around you. You'll see a green circle. I'll go ahead and do a rotation with this ultimate. You can see just the beast that he is. The green circle floating around my legs and body there, that AoE is going to damage and also heal me. And I love this this ultimate in addition to the other pets and animals. Look how bigger than the model of the Infernal. Look at all the pets here and all the bodies. This is why I call it the Necrotic Horde, because you quite literally are a horde of enemies here. So you bring a horde with you. I love it. Okay, so now we'll talk about some of the imperative passives we're going for and using on this build. Gravelord first, reusable parts. When one of your summons dies, the next one will be 50% cheaper pretty much. Death Knell, okay. Dismember, Gravelord ability is active. Spell and physical penetration are increased. That's our Summoner's Armor. Rapid Rot, increase your damage done with damage over time effects by 15%. That's great with our double dots and all of our dots going, so. Alright, next one, Bone Tyrant, Death Gleaning. When an enemy dies within 28 meters, you gain 200 stamina and Magicka. Reduce the damage you take from damage over time abilities. While you have a Bone Tyrant ability active, we will always. Last Gasp, there's that max health buff I talked about earlier that goes well with Maw of the Infernal, and I said Nord passive and Necromancer passive. There it is. All right, next one, Living Death, Curative Curse. When a negative effect is on you, your healing done is increased by 8%. Near-death experience. Basically, you get more critical strike chance with your healing abilities, up to 20% when you're weaker in health. Corpse consumption, you won't get this unless you use like Necrotic Potency or something on a corpse. We don't have that in this build yet, but you can tweak that. Undead Confederate, when you have a Blast Bone, Skeleton Mage, or Mender active, your stamina and Magicka is increased by 200. That's great. Now we'll look at champion points here. All right, we'll start with the Thief, the Tower. Break free and sprint cost reduction are going to go a long way in this build. Nothing really, as far as unlocks, was very imperative on this tree. The next tree, the Lover, Magicka recovery and stamina recovery. You could tweak those a little bit to get a little more stamina recovery than 13%, but I've also got over 1,000 Magicka recovery, and I wanted to keep it that way for the buffs and the heals and some of those Magicka abilities. So the Shadow, we've got Tumbling, which is an imperative investment on this build. You can dodge roll for days. You're very elusive, and when you complete a dodge roll, you get that expedition to increase your speed. Mage, Apprentice, Blessed. We invested 30 points at least into that one for more healing done, but also to unlock spell precision, because that extra spell crit is going to increase the chance for a crit heal from your Spirit Guardian. All right, next tree will be Atronach. Physical Weapon Expert, basically light and heavy attacks for all of our physical abilities, and Master at Arms, increasing damage done by direct damage attacks. We've got a lot of those. So Butcher is what you want to go for here, though. Light and heavy attacks increased by 5% to enemies below 25% health. Unlock that tree. The Ritual, damage over time goes a long way in this build with the dots. This is probably your most highly invested tree. Precise strikes, increasing your critical damage and healing. And then Piercing gets that extra penetration, and Mighty, physical, poison, and disease damage. So all of those are going to go a long way in this build. The most highly invested tree. But this Last Stand is a great unlock as well. You get that major heroism if you drop below 20% health. So, and then of course Exploiter is always a good one. It's a freebie. Any off-balance enemies, damage increased by 10%. So, all right, the next tree, Warrior, the Steed. Medium armor focus, crit resistance, spell shield, ironclad. This is going to be your most highly invested resistance tree. Just keep in mind when you invest CP points that you should only go one decimal click above the next whole number, because nothing else applies. But this resilient, you want to go for this when you take critical damage. You're going to heal for 200 health. So definitely unlock that in PvP. Next tree, the Lady. Reduce your damage over time. That's going to stack well with the Necromancer passives I showed you. Hardy. Reduce poison, physical, and disease, and elemental defender. Of course, none in light armor focus, but you want to get this critical leech. When you deal direct critical damage, you heal for 356. So with those two 75-point unlocks, you're going to get healing from crit hits dealt and received. Last tree, the Lord. Basically healing received. There was no real unlock that I was interested in going after on this, but because the other trees are more important. But there you go. There is a champion points guide. You can adjust as you see fit. And that, my friends, pretty much sums up the build, the Necrotic Horde build, PvP Stamina Necromancer. If you'd like to tweak it a little bit, I did try with Morkelden as a set to replace one of the Hungers. Unfathomable Darkness was a good one. I gave you extra penetration. If you want to slot in place of the Poison Skull, the Spiders, for even more bodies out there, it requires a synergy from an ally, but anyhow, guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Please copy, paste, share, tweak, have fun, get out there, raise your own necrotic army and kill people with it. It's fun. If you like this build and you want to see more, feel free to check out my channel. There's more on there that I've shared in the past. Tanks, healers, DPSs, mostly PvP, but I've got a few more in the works I'm pretty excited to bring to you guys, and just keep your eyes open. Thanks again for watching. Dark Energy, signing out.